I believe that everyone is a leader. Hello, I'm Ronnie Floyd. Each of us has the power to influence ourselves and others. To do this, we need to experience God's presence daily. And this is why I want to inspire you to live and to lead with confidence. So I want to share with you my new and special book, Day by Day and Night by Night, 365 morning and evening devotions for leaders. Regardless of your occupation, location, or generation, whether you are in the pit of discouragement, at the pinnacle of success, or wherever you may be, you will discover that day by day and night by night is for you. "16 leadership lessons from running my first marathon at 70 years of age." My name is Ronnie Floyd, and this is podcast number 73. Stay tuned today.
Ronnie Floyd is a leader of leaders with a vision to change the world. The 4 Leaders podcast with Ronnie Floyd is committed to investing, inspiring, and influencing your life and leadership today. With a legacy of investing in thousands and thousands of leaders throughout the years who've led in multiple arenas of leadership. Now is the time, and today is the day for Ronnie Floyd to invest, inspire, and influence you in a serious and responsible way. So spread the news and share the 4 Leaders podcast with others around the world. Now, here's your host, Ronnie Floyd.
I want to welcome you today to the podcast, and I'm excited to be able to enter into it immediately with you. I was born on November 11, 1955. Do the math. I just turned 70. On December the 6th, 2025, less than 1 month after my 70th birthday, I ran and completed the St. Jude Memphis Marathon. This was the first marathon that I have ever ran. For those who might not know, a marathon is a long-distance running race measuring exactly 26.2 miles. Yes, you heard that right, 26.2 miles. To everyone involved with St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, who cares for children with cancer and shows compassion to their families, thank you for everything you do, including your vision, preparation, and execution of this huge event for thousands of people annually. I never saw myself as competing against others in this marathon. If I were competing, it would be against myself and my personal desire simply to achieve this. I want to run a marathon. Now, when I was in high school and an athlete, I was a sprinter. I was not a long-distance runner. In fact, I never liked running long distances. But over 40 years ago, I began running. How long? Over 40 years ago. Back then, 3 miles would have been a big goal to achieve. Even then, my goal was not speed, but it was endurance. 20 years ago, I started running 3 to 5 miles a day, and periodically I would even run 7 miles. Most likely, I have run many days a week, sometimes 5 and sometimes 7. And then, over the past 5 years, really beginning in the pandemic, I began lengthening these runs on many days. It was then that I started thinking, one day I may run a marathon. In 2024, I began asking God to help me be healthy enough to run a marathon. In 2025, I started praying, Lord, this year, help me to run a marathon. Then it became more specific and essential to me, and I began praying, Lord, I want to run this marathon for your honor as a testimony of your power through me all the way through the finish line of 26.2 miles. Please, Lord, let me do this miracle through me, through you, for your honor and for your glory. And I pray that others would be drawn to Christ because of it. All for God's kingdom and unto his glory. I pray and ask that this miracle be done. And I stood upon these words, for nothing is impossible with God. Luke 1:37. With a desire to glorify God, a passion for helping others, a commitment to invest, inspire, and influence leaders, and a deep humility before God, along with an overflowing gratitude for answered prayer, I want to share these fresh thoughts that have come to me while running this marathon and since I finished running this marathon last Saturday, December 6, 2025. Just 3 days ago when I am recording this episode. Now, this podcast episode isn't, and I want you to hear me clearly, it isn't about running a marathon. This podcast episode is about life and leadership today. If you want to know how to run a marathon, you don't need to talk to me, my friend. But if you're interested in living life and becoming the leader God wants you to be, then continue listening now, because God used a marathon to teach me more about life and leadership than I've ever known before. And this is why I want to discuss this topic with you this week. And here is the topic: 16 leadership lessons from running my first marathon at age 70 years. Now, before I share what I've learned, I want to make one thing perfectly clear. Life is a gift from God. Every breath is his gift to us. I am fully aware that health is one of the great gifts to us. No matter our age, we should remember and thank God for our health. The likelihood is that as we get older, we should remember and we should become more understanding of matters about life. For example, we have to understand that the older we get, the more likely it is that we will die. However, the reality is also that younger people also die every day. Regardless of your age or my age, we need to live our lives to the fullest, because every day is a gift from God. Today could be our last day on this earth, but it also could be the first day that we could start living life and developing leadership to reach the full capacity, the full potential that God has created all of us to experience. So now, let's get started. Over the past 24 hours, I have written down these thoughts that I want to share with you. I hope they help you become the person and the leader God intends for you to be, and that you have the potential to be in your life. So I'm going to share with you these 16 principles these 16 lessons, these 16 leadership lessons from running my first marathon at 70 years of age. Number one, leaders dream. Leaders dream. Personal stirrings began within me many years ago about running a marathon. And those personal stirrings eventually became a desire to do it. But then I began dreaming about it. Not literally dreaming in my sleep, but dreaming about what it would be like about running a marathon. Now I want you to consider these questions for your life today. What are you dreaming about doing in your life and your vocation? What has been stirring in you for a while? In fact, you may have been ignoring those stirrings or even denying those dreams. What is holding you back from making that dream to become a reality? Let me tell you this today. Leaders dream. Lesson number 2, leaders set goals. Leaders set goals. In 2024, I began thinking more seriously about it, about running this marathon, and I began to pray about it every day. I needed God's help. I knew that, or I could never do it. There is no way I would have the capacity to have the mental stamina and the physical ability to do that. I knew that. But then in 2025, it became a reality. I dreamed, I prayed, I set a goal. Now, what is a goal? A goal is a declaration of faith with a timeline. When is the last time you have turned your dreams into a reality? Is it consuming you enough to pray about it? Is it consuming you enough to set a goal to accomplish it, where you even say, I am going to do this during 2026, whatever it is that you have been dreaming about in your life or your leadership? I want to challenge you today to launch on in. And when you decide that you're going to do it, then date it. Put a timeline on it. Because leaders set goals. Number 3, leaders pay the price through preparation. You know, running a marathon demands training. You have to build up your body doing a few runs that lead all the way up to 18 to 20 miles. And this takes time. We would begin at 5:15 in the morning. And these runs were long and they were difficult and they were challenging through weather and through the changes of your own life and everything you're walking in at that moment of time. It demands commitment. It demands sacrifice. These are absolutely essential. There is a price that you are paying every time you do it, physically and practically. And I became keenly aware that the more I trained, the more likely it would be that I am risking also injury. You see, even fearing the failure to achieve is hard to deal with. And the closer I got to the event, there was ongoing pressure that was very unique for me. Leaders pay the price through preparation. Listen, leading is challenging today. Leaders often have to pay a price for their role. Maybe you've been dreaming about earning your PhD, finishing college, starting a business, or working in a city you love. Remember, no matter who the leader is, there is a cost that comes with every leadership decision. There's always a risk. John Maxwell says it this way: you will pay now or you will pay later. There are no shortcuts in becoming an effective leader. Leaders pay the price through preparation, training, and sacrifice. Be willing to pay that cost. Leadership lesson number 4, leaders never stop learning. I had to learn as much as possible about what it was like to run a marathon. Anyone that I ever met and talked about it with, and I knew that they had done it, I asked them many questions. I also read articles and thoughts and testimonies about what it was like to do that. But that happened because I was a learner. I want to ask you today, are you teachable? Are you a continual learner? There are many things you may not know, so don't act like you know everything. Being a know-it-all does not win friends. Being a life learner can literally impact your life and leadership in so many ways, positively. Listen carefully to the lesson. Leaders never stop learning. Lesson number 5, leaders never stop growing. Running a marathon was way beyond my realm of knowledge. I had no choice. I had to grow through learning about it. I am smart enough to realize that I needed to know so much as possible, or as much as possible, before I ever went after doing it. But I also understood the more I trained, the more I knew I needed to keep on growing through learning about what it means, what's going to happen when you run a marathon. Now, this podcast, as I said, is not about a marathon. It's about life and leadership. The point is this: are you growing in your life and leadership? What have you done this past year that is new and different? In our ever-changing world, we do not need to think that we do not need to grow or we don't need to change. That is nonsense. Stop that. The more you grow, the more you know how much more you need to grow. Leaders never stop growing. Lesson number 6, leaders live by faith. Faith always has an object. For me, my object of my faith is in Jesus Christ and Him alone. And absolutely a firm believer in the Holy Scripture called the Bible. I knew this, that if God did not give me the health, I could not do this. If God did not empower me while I was doing it, it would be completely impossible for me to do. May I counsel you in this way today? You do not need to trust in yourself. Oh no. God's bigger than you. And God can do more in a moment than you can ever do in a lifetime. This is why I am convinced that leaders need to live by faith. Are you living by faith? Live by faith and not by sight. Leaders live by faith. Lesson number 7, leaders make hard decisions. Running a marathon was a very hard decision for me. I did not want to fail. Have you ever thought about that? Not until I registered for this marathon, I never told anyone I was training to do it, except the person I was training with. And then I also feared I could not complete it, so I only told a select few of people, like even my family, that I am considering deeply running a marathon. Now, some leaders run from making decisions. Some leaders pay a heavy price for making the right decisions. The fear of failure is real. But I want to remind you, as it is also said, failure is not fatal. So be willing to make the decisions. Be willing to risk it all. Be willing to do the right thing in the right way. And whatever you're facing, whatever you've been running from, stand up and make that hard decision. Your life, your family, your organization, your business, your church, your team, whatever it is you're a part of, will become better when you are willing as a leader to make the hard decisions. Number 8, leaders anticipate the moment. In other words, what will this be like when I run a marathon? Thousands of people doing this. And I had never even done a race since the days of high school years. And that was never having anything to do with distance. I'm telling you, anxiety was real for me about this. And the closer I got to it, the more anxious it was. And one of the things I was anxious about is, can I do this? And I feared what I did not know, because that's what we fear the most in life, is it not? The things we do not know about. Even the weather, what would it be like? I always said I would never run a course that's not flat, and the weather was, like Florida hot. Guess what? It was 33 degrees when we started the race that morning. And it was a hilly course along the way. Never say never, but anticipate the moment. The power of imagination as a leader may help you to anticipate the moment. And the moment, perhaps, that you're going to become president of your business, or the coach of a new team, or having a baby, or getting a huge promotion, or finally achieving the role of CEO. Listen, you got to get in that moment. You have to anticipate the moment. That's what leaders do. Leaders anticipate the moment. Number 9, leaders step into the waters of uncertainty. Leaders step into the waters of uncertainty. I realized that on that December 6th cold morning, the moment the marathon began and the horns blew, I stepped into the waters of uncertainty. I felt ready, but was I? I had trained, but was it enough? With all my questions, I stepped into the waters of uncertainty. Let me ask you today, when is the last time you have stepped into the waters of uncertainty? When is the last time you took a risk? All the questions do not have to be answered, or all the negativity has to be out of the way. Leaders step into the waters of uncertainty. So put the foot into the waters and do it. Leaders step into the waters of uncertainty. Lesson number 10, leaders set the pace. I didn't realize this, but races have pace setters. That's their role. They set the pace and they carry the group with them as long as they can get at that pace. But the pace is never compromised. But it really boils down to one thing as a runner, or whatever it is you do in your life in leadership. you're going to set your own pace. That's what we did. So stop blaming others for not achieving your goals. Leaders set the pace. You're responsible and you're accountable as a leader. So move your organization forward by setting the pace. Leaders set the pace. Leadership lesson number 11. Leaders persevere through extreme challenges. My body, mind, emotion, and will were challenged in every way in this marathon, even considering how I felt and wrestled mentally the last several miles of this marathon. I mean, I got challenged big time personally. And even now in recovery, it's not yet complete. Leaders will face extreme challenges, unfair challenges, extraordinary challenges. I want to challenge you today, though. Persevere, endure, do the right thing, and do it in the right way. The leadership journey is arduous, so never give up. Leaders persevere through extreme challenges. Lesson number 12, leaders know they need other leaders with them. Leaders know they need other leaders with them. The environment and the culture set by the St. Jude Memphis Marathon was set at the starting line and all along every mile of the race, and even in between the miles. There may be people cheering, bands playing, music going. There was constant encouraging atmosphere going on. My friend Julio Adiola and I, we trained together. Julio coached me through this along the way. I attribute even the finishing of this marathon and the friendship of it and the execution of it, I attribute it to Julio, who inspired me along the way. I'm also thankful for other friends like Sean Smith on our team at Cross Church, who's run a few marathons. And then my friend in Kansas City by the name of Malachi O'Brien, who ran 153 marathons consecutively. That's right, 153 days in a row. He ran a marathon. I don't know how in the world he did it. And also my Gina and Julio's wife, Carla, they were there at the finish line experiencing all of this with Julio and me. You see, leadership is never an isolation journey. It usually ends up in trouble if it is. None of us is good enough to lead by ourselves. It's people who enlarge us, people who help us, people who make us better. And we need one another. And leaders know they need other leaders with them. Lesson number 13, leaders set their own thermostat called attitude. Something happened to me in the last couple of weeks to my attitude, from I hope I finish it to I will finish it. I adjusted the thermostat, but preparation and prayer helped me do this. This needed to happen with me personally because I'm responsible for me. I was running the marathon, not anyone else. Listen, it's time for all of us to learn this, and I hope you'll learn it. Attitude is the key to your altitude in life. Attitude is the thermostat in every organization, and leaders are responsible for both the organization's attitude and its reach. Zig Ziglar used to say, "Quit your stinking thinking." And boy, that is true. Leaders set their own thermostat called attitude. Lesson number 14, leaders finish. My goal was never based on time alone. I just turned 70 years old and had never done this before. I ultimately wanted to do one thing. You know what it was? Finish well and finish doing my best. I kept on praying aloud. That's right, even as I was running. For nothing is impossible with God. I kept on saying aloud in prayer, Lord, this is for your kingdom and for your glory. Empower me. You know, I can tell you, the leadership, we always finish. The finish line is sweet. Leaders finish. Reaching the finish line of a race, a campaign, a major event, a major accomplishment, a major milestone you have worked toward. There's nothing like it. I'm telling you, leaders finish. Whatever you're doing, leader, please finish. And then number 15, leaders celebrate. That's right, they celebrate. When I cross the finish line, the announcer surprisingly called my name aloud and told all the crowd at the finish line he just turned 70 years old. I was so glad I was finished. I'm not sure what I did. I know I thanked God, and then I was leaning over a small boundary like a fence, and I was hugging my wife, barely able to stand up. And once I stopped, I could barely walk. I mean, I gave my all, and I did my all to finish well. Eventually, within a couple of hours, I began to realize what had occurred and was still realizing it, and I'm still realizing it even to this day. It was God who empowered me to run this. And speaking of God, I have thought, since I have finished that race, what it will be like one day when Jesus calls my name. And when I go to heaven, I pray that I hear him say about me, "Well done, thy good and thy faithful servant." That, my friend, will be incomparable as a celebration to anything any of us will ever experience in this world. Let me ask you, do you take time to celebrate the wins in your life, the wins in your organization, your church, your team? Celebrating accomplishments inspires even greater accomplishments, and small wins lead to bigger wins. Leaders celebrate. And number 16, leaders challenge other leaders. Leaders challenge other leaders. That's what I've learned. Other leaders have challenged me all my life. I cannot say they encouraged me to run a marathon, but they did encourage me to do other things. I'm not challenging you to run a marathon. That's not what this podcast is about. But what I am challenging you to do is to become the person and the leader God has empowered you to do. And to become. So listen carefully. Start dreaming, setting goals, paying the price through preparation. Never stop learning, never stop growing, living by faith, making hard decisions, anticipating the moment, stepping into the waters of uncertainty, setting the pace, persevering through extreme challenges, knowing you need other leaders around you, setting your own thermostat called attitude, finishing strong and well, celebrating successes in life, and challenging other leaders to become the person and the leader they have the potential and the capacity to be. I close with this today. The Bible declares Jesus wants you to experience greater things in your life. And God can do greater things in and through you. So trust God daily. Stand upon these words, for nothing will be impossible with God. Including, for me, running my first marathon just days after turning 70 years old. For God's kingdom and to God's glory alone. Do what God has put in your heart to do. Finish strong and finish well. Hi, I'm Ronnie Floyd. I've spent my life helping people. In my new book, The Supernatural Power of Prayer and Fasting, I explain how these two powerful practices can profoundly transform your life. It is more than a book, it's an invitation to experience God and His miracles in your life. The Supernatural Power of Prayer and Fasting is available now. Take this step to change your life forever.
Thanks for tuning in. For more information on Ronnie Floyd, go to 4leaders.com. We'll see you next time.